the show.
Shit, thank you, Kay. I got a lot out of that. I don't know if you expected to be on a full philosophy meeting tonight, but you killed it.
I had no idea what was happening. I was just like, I'm supposed to be here.
You was awesome, and you have. I'm not saying this to blow smoke up your ass. You've got a lot of insight and perspective for a young lady of your age. You're doing all right. Just keep doing what you do.
Sweet sweater.
Okay. The She Devil one's fucking dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just don't get bitter. You'll be all right. Just keep doing what you do. People are shitty, but you've got a really good head on your shoulders. Like I don't ever worry about you psychologically. Like you're the least of my concerns mentally. In terms of, falling into other shit. Obviously on the mat, we still got stuff to work on, but falling into other BS. I don't worry about you. So good shit, Kay. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's tomorrow? Wednesday. I'll probably see you Thursday.
Okay, probably. Maybe.
What's up?
I don't think I'll be at Omega Thursday night.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to have my legs touched yet.
Weren't you the motherfucker telling me you were going to be training on Tuesday? Wasn't that you?
Yeah, but that's not leg shit. Leg shit's totally different than normal jujitsu.
Do you see her tattoo, Chris?
Oh, was that was your tattoo? The like
the-
horse lady or whatever?
The thigh piece? Yeah, it's fucking sick.
Yeah,
dude.
that thing's sick. That's awesome. Yeah.
I'm attacking my legs, so I won't be there on Thursday. But if you want to train in the morning, whenever.
No, I'm going to throw outside Ashi on you like 150 times.
That's exactly what they're gonna do. I'm gonna get there and be like Ashi drills, and that's why I don't want to go.
I'm going to wear gi pants and just rip your tattoo to pieces.
Exactly.
No, it's all good. We can, well, I mean, we got your video done. And if we're not going to be on the mat, I'll see you next week. It's all good.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Don't get out of shape.
I was in the gym today. I didn't see you there.
I was joking, man. I was joking. What do you mean you didn't see me there? Shut up.
All right. It was nice talking to you guys.
All right,
Thank
Kay.
you.
Thanks. See ya.
Thank you.
Boom. Good stuff, man.
That was a good one.
She had a lot to offer, and she's got strong opinions. Like I love the backbone on that girl, man, for being 20. And there's no like, oh yeah, okay, no, she's sticking to her guns. Like obviously life is gonna do some humbling, as it tends to do once you get a little bit more advanced in your years, but the foundation she's got is probably gonna do okay for her.
Yeah, no, she's really mature, and well balanced.
Oh yeah.
I think I might have hit a bit of a nerve with the dudes having babies comment.
Yeah, probably. She's young though. I mean,
yeah.
But again, it's that shift. It's the same thing we're talking about. She's a generation and a half younger than us.
Yeah.
And in that 15 years, and we've talked about this before, like with our language and all that stuff, right? Those other episodes, stuff that used to be cool societally, we know we can't say anymore.
Right.
Same kind of idea. I don't have any problem whatsoever with what you said, but we're both like kind of here on that line. And her being female and 15 years younger than us is a little bit further, you know what I'm saying?
What I think it's framed differently, like for instance, the whole gay thing, gay marriage or whatever, the inclusion of people that are homosexual in society. Before it was just shunned because, oh, that's weird, I don't like that, right?
Sinners.
Which was wrong, like especially from the religious perspective, wrong.
Well, they're all gay anyway. They're all banging little boys.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Projection. But like sometimes it's about like the inclusion of people in society, but I think it's been taken too far. Like
Overcorrecting, man.
Yeah, like sure, be part of society. I don't give a fuck. But I'm not going to address you by something that I don't like. after the fact, sure, I guess, whatever, Sharon, you know, but just like, and Jordan Peterson talked about this. This is like how he got his start on all the shit, like in Canada, where they were trying to make it a crime, you know, to say certain things to certain people. That's where I take issue.
Yeah.
You know, and entertaining other people's fantasies. Like, there's an objective truth in biological sex.
I mean, and there always has been, but and this is part of the discussion. And again, knowing your audience, right? I love and respect Kay, but I don't want to put her in a spot where she feels like she has to defend herself, because that's not what we're doing. We're just talking, right? We're just having a conversation, trying to gain perspective from each other. But that's kind of another one of those questions that I have. It's like, okay, I respect the rights of everybody to have rights, and that's great. But in you trying to fortify the rights for that person, have to take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6% of rights away from everybody else surrounding them, that becomes a bit of an issue. Or because of that specific group, what they need or require to be considered, I hate to use the word equal, but equal, has to come at the detriment of other groups. I don't find that that's right either.
It's unfortunate because oppressed groups often are the victim of people that are nasty, right? That are like literally think that people of that oppressed group are not human or are less than themselves or whatever. And so the natural reaction is to, like, you know, give what you get, right?
Yeah.
And in some respects, like, you can't really blame them, right? Because that's kind of what society demands. You can't just say, hey, I'm gay and I deserve rights. Sometimes you got to go and take it. You know what I mean? Like, I get that. But I think generally we're in a world now where we realize that everybody is equal, and just because of your sexuality or skin color, like, for the most part, and maybe I'm too optimistic about this, but for the most part, like, that's not really, at least in my reality, an issue anymore.
But that's just it,
again,
right?
I'm not
It's
part
reality.
of that oppressed group.
It's the reality. Your one black friend is about to get on his soapbox here, but that's the reality, dude. Like, every 2 seconds, I don't watch mainstream news for the most part, especially over the last 2 years. Like, I've got no interest in. I can just turn on a fiction movie or something if I want to do that.
Right.
But like all the hatred, the division, the this, the that, I live my life, dude. Like, I've never been attacked, even more so. Like, I've had issues growing up. Obviously, everybody's got issues, you know what I mean? I sound funny. I grew up in a predominantly Asian peer group in a Caucasian neighborhood and playing sports with all the black kids. So I got a lot of different cultural influences, and my family's from Trinidad. So it's very different as a kid growing up versus traditional black families. Same thing, very different than the Caucasian families, very different than the Asian families. So it was a constant adapt to the peer group that you're with. You're getting little pieces from each one, and that kind of societally ends up building up your understanding of the people around you, so that I know I can operate this way with this group, that way with that group, but it doesn't overlap to where the stuff that I'm doing with my jock friends, I'm forcing my tuner friends to do. You know what I'm saying? Just because I enjoy doing that with this peer group, I can enjoy this group over here for what it is. And then when I need something different, I can go over here to my other peer group and get it from them, and still operate as a fully functional, happy member of society. That level of personal development and adaptation, I think, is what has been stripped away. And it's become a decree of accept this person or you're a racist. Like, what? Like, how come, where does the ability to flow and adapt? And again, I don't disagree that there's a certain amount of displaced in any system. That's why government essentially should exist, is to help the amount of the people that are displaced from said system. But when we keep turning to daddy and asking for help, like, you're not going to be able to fucking do anything on your own. And eventually, here we go, daddy, I need you to clear a path because that person looked at me mean and I can't get from A to B. Well, fuck, maybe like, I mean, Jordan Peterson says very similar things, you know, lift something heavy, make a fucking friend, do something hard. These are things that you need to do to develop wherewithal as a person and fortitude as a person. Stripped, gone.
Because otherwise you'll become a victim. I think I think all of us struggle with becoming a victim in some sense. And it's a constant thing. It's not something that goes away. You know, at least for me, I can say I've done difficult things. And when I drift away from those difficult things and I don't challenge myself, that victim mentality slowly creeps in. It comes back. It always grows back. You gotta chop it down all the fucking time, because your brain wants to take the path of least resistance.
Always.
So if it can make up an excuse, oh boy, that's the most addictive drug of all. And you know, government, man, they have to create a victim class, otherwise they have no reason or right to exist. So, you know, a lot of people buy into that shit, and it just makes me wonder, yeah, have you, you know, as a certain dispossessed class of people, experienced racism or hatred or whatever? Yes, of course, it absolutely exists. It's not been eradicated. It's been greatly improved, I think. But are those people, at least some of them, falling into that victim trap, you know?
Yeah.
And this is saying, like, I've experienced it as well. And so it's not like you're an idiot, you're just trying to make up excuses. I think that's the message from conservatives sometimes, is like the pull up your bootstraps kind of attitude or whatever. But listen, those people are fucking successful, and those people don't view themselves as victims. And those people, generally, painting with a broad brush here, but those people generally are doing the hard shit, you know, and reaping the benefits from it. So I don't know, man.
It's like, easy to say, yeah, come on over and do it like we're doing, when you're already in the middle of it, for sure. If you're in the struggle and you're waist deep in that victim mentality, obviously that perspective is probably lost on you. You know, like, what the fuck are you talking about? There's no possible way out of the situation that I'm in. Whereas, like you said, see the guy on the other side of the fence, like, what the fuck are you talking about? Just pull your shoes out of the mud. What are you waiting on? Come on over. There's work to be done. It's tough, but it's like you said, though, once we accept that, it feeds into itself. It's the government creating the problem to become the solution. It's intentionally displacing a certain percentage of the population so that we have that certain percentage constantly clamoring and asking, please, 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 help, help, help. So we always have something to do. We can magnify them. We can show that everybody, this is what we do. We're here, and then we can spread it, right? So if you don't have that group, like you said perfectly, then what's the point of having you? We don't need you anymore if you're not here to serve that purpose. And then obviously magnifying it across everybody else. I think even with the couple of times you guys pushed back and forth, you were on the same page more than you weren't. From sitting on my side, listening to the two of you talk, I think you were on the same page more than you weren't, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think she might have a perception of me.
Sure. And it's going, and you can tell because it's going through that filter, and everything that you're saying is going through that filter in her head.
Right.
Sure. But we all do the same thing, right? I'm sure you have. It might not be as vast. It might be very limited, but I'm sure you have a perception of Makayla versus any other 20-year-old female that you might encounter. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I can, without talking to her, I can run something. Obviously, I spend a lot of time with Kay, but I can run something through a filter in my head, a predictive Makayla filter versus a predictive other random 20-year-old filter, and they're going to be different. So I know that I've got preconceptions as well. Knowing who you are, knowing what you do with our company, knowing some of the relationship that we've had. She's done some of the CQD training with us and stuff. Yeah, she's probably got a bit of an idea in her head at the very least of this box that you're in. But like you guys mentioned before, these conversations where we're able to just sit back, shut the fuck up for a second, listen to where the other person is coming from, and have the ability to ask follow-up questions, not just go to the next subject, allows for a little bit more of those doors of nuance to be opened up where we can be like, okay, so that little box that I had Chris in, all right, maybe this wall needs to come out a little bit more. Maybe I need to put a couple holes in here. Maybe I need to lift this side up because it doesn't quite contain everything. It's a little bit more amalgamous than maybe I originally thought. And that's all we really need. And when she walks away from the conversation, hopefully she's like, okay, maybe the box isn't quite a square. Maybe it's a little bit more of an ellipse or a rectangle or something. And then the next time it expands out a little bit more. And then we get to this point where, your perceived box, oh, this is going to sound terrible. Your perceived box and her perceived box intersect, and we make our little, Vesica Pisces, and that becomes understanding.
Yeah, it's brain exercise.
It's fucking all it is.
It's so annoying. It's so annoying. Got to do physical exercise, brain exercise, please everybody around you, make money.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop till you die, I guess.
It's exhausting. Well, and that's see, I'm glad you said that. It stops when you die.
Yeah.
If you stop.
Or yeah, right. Yeah, effectively.
Right?
Effectively. Yeah.
It's easy to be like, yeah, it doesn't stop till you're dead. Well, you could easily look at it the other way. You die if you stop.
That's probably a fate worse than death, realistically.
Right?
Because you're living, and despite that, you have no reason to.
Mm-hmm. I had one of my athletes that I loosely referenced when we were talking with Kay, and I didn't want to bring it up because it's not for her to have to comment on, but has shown some very serious character issues over the last couple of weeks, to the point where we had to.
Is that the thing you're talking about?
Yeah, we had. Yes,
shit?
We had to discontinue our affiliation. Unfortunately, and I don't care to do that, because the model of what we're doing is personal development, and what you can't have personal development without an era of redemption. So the door is always open, but there's a certain amount of commitment. There's a quid pro quo that needs to happen. I can't. It's the same adage. You can lead the horse to water. You can't make him drink.
Can't want it more than you.
That's it. But ended up just being a whole bullshit run around situation. Didn't end up cutting weight. Opponent was there waiting for them to come to fight. Didn't even bother to tell the promoter they weren't coming to fight. Like, just an ugly, really crappy situation to do to people, your teammates and your opponent. Like, literally had somebody cut, make weight, drive to the venue, and then not have their fight show up. It's a really crappy thing. But this person's personal issues, it was first step, not my problem. Second step, come on, let's help you along, because now it's a hindrance to your physical development with what we're trying to do. Third step, again, all right, too much, probably not my problem. Fourth step, oh, okay, so you're just gonna dump all this on my lap. All right, now it's all my problem. Okay, well, let's try to get through it a little bit together. Okay, you don't like that. You don't actually want to go through any of your problems. You just want me to hold on to all of it for you so that you can do what you want to do. Got it. We're not doing that. I'll hold it so long as you're willing to help me sort through it. But the second you think you can just leave it in my arms and walk to go fuck off or do whatever or whomever, that's where I'm just like, dropping it. Come back and get it. It'll be here when you're done with it. And that's the issue I have.
Shit, I mean, I'd be lying to you if I told you I haven't wanted to do that or have done that in the past.
Sure.
But the problem is going back to that perception thing, is your brain will do things subconsciously, and they will manifest in actions, and you won't even realize how they affect people around you. I'm bad about that. I'm really bad about that. And it's not until somebody says something like, hey, dickhead, that thing you did was really fucked up. And I'm like, oh, that's true.
Absolutely.
But I didn't have any intent. And so my brain said, it's all good.
Yeah. And you don't even
You
think
know?
about it because there's nothing to think about, right? Like Kay said, like, why do I gotta feel bad? I know that I acted virtuously. I know that I didn't act in a selfish way. I know that I acted in the best interest of, if God's always watching, Santa's always watching, whatever. I'm on the good list. Like I'm not worried about how you perceive my actions because I, in my heart, know that my actions came from a good spot. But like you said, just because you don't own that perception doesn't mean that it can't be taken the wrong way. Like
You'd still be wrong. And
sure.
I mean, and your brain can lie to you too. Like it can justify just about anything.
It does it all
And it's
the time.
Yeah. And it's only until you actually like step outside of the box and actually consider what it was. I think if you're doing that to somebody that you care about, then it means more. Like, have you heard of Steven Crowder?
Mm-hmm.
So he had a comment about the whole Joe Rogan apology thing. It's like, listen, you never apologize to your enemy. You can be wrong and do something and apologize to somebody that you care about, somebody that you love, because you care about that relationship. But you don't have a relationship with these fucking people. They're trying to destroy you.
Mm-hmm.
So the last thing you want to do is apologize, even if you were wrong. And yeah, he was wrong for saying that word, even in context, I think, because again, I have that like societal baseline, like you just don't say that word, right? That's my opinion. But I mean, I'm not going to pillory the dude for saying it, especially if it was done in context.
You also think men can't have babies, you bigot.
Oh, I know. Yeah. You can dress up as a man and have a baby. But you can't be a man and have a baby.
Well, I don't know.
You cannot, yeah.
Is it a you or a you to us, buddy?
Yeah, that's my frustration. Is not really people like saying that they're men or females when they're not or whatever. It's like, let's just make everything subjective. The only reason we have a fucking society is because there are baselines and objective truths that we all agree.
I don't
that we
like
mostly
the
agree
ambiguity. On. It's garbage,
yeah,
and
it's annoying.
You can't move the goalpost every day. You can't.
No.
You can't change the definition of what the word science is. You can't actively change definitions of words to suit your agenda.
And I know, well, this was another thing that I felt like kind of ruffled Case feathers a little bit is the hierarchy.
Mm-hmm. I think that's context. I think that's just context because, like, you say hierarchy. I think she might have assumed like caste system kind of hierarchy rather than like a Maslow's
meritocracy
hierarchy of importance. Correct.
Yeah. A society has to fall into those things. That's the only way that we can operate. If everybody's the alpha, we're fucked, But my point is that it's not lost on me that a lot of these people are low on that hierarchy,
mm-hmm.
and they're attempting to claw back power by creating false uniqueness and using political power to silence their dissidents and their opponents.
And it just so happens that political power right now is in the form of victimhood. If you can be the biggest victim, you can get the most clout.
Right. And it just it keeps going. And I'm like, these people, if we were to eliminate, let's just say, for the sake of argument, there was a solar flare and it knocked out power and we got rocked back to the fucking Stone Ages. You want to know what the first thing to go would be? Your fucking gender identity. All that shit's gone. We're back to banging each other on the head with stones and sticks and shit. And on the other end of that, all of this bullshit that we're going through right now is out the fucking window. And I hate to like talk about that as if it's like a fantasy, like I want to reorder the world.
You look like you're getting kind of hard there, Klaus.
I know. It's hard, dude. But Seriously.
Oh, for sure.
That's
Well,
how I know it's bullshit.
We've talked about this before, right? Like the lack of having to go out and find food and shelter and evade saber-tooth fucking tigers has allowed the space of complacency to fester and fester and fester and fester and fester. And now we've assigned 126 gender identities because we don't have shit to really fucking worry about right now. Obesity, cancer, all these things are diseases of, in most cases. I want to be very clear. I apologize if I lump in the cancer, because that can be obviously, you can have lots of different causes for that. But generally speaking, and you can probably track this, I'm not obviously with the CDC or anything, but you can probably track this over the last 200 years. I guarantee the increase in all these different cancers is directly proportional to cigarette sales and genetically modified food. All of these things are first world problems. How much hyper obesity and cancer deaths do we have in third world countries? And I think that proves exactly what you're talking about. These things are created because we don't have other shit to worry about.
Yeah. And I just think we're like at peak society right now. Like, this shit is like the Roman Empire, like no joke. Like, there's so much hedonism and just fucking.
So you're saying right now you see the next Renaissance and Age of Enlightenment coming after this. Let's go. I like it. I want to be here for it, baby. I want to be strapped in for the second Renaissance. I love it.
The reset they're talking about is not the one we need, man.
I didn't say reset. I said Renaissance. Get out of here, Klaus. You're on that Bond villain shit again. Hey, you'll own nothing and you'll like it. It'll be great.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know what the answer is, but I think, and we end up hitting it every week, but I think for whatever reason, within my world, within our little bubble of reality, I think these conversations help, man. It makes me at least consider that, if not just the NPCs that I deal with outside of my four walls on the day-to-day, but other people that I genuinely care about, and I'm invested in their well-being and their positive outcome in their lives. It reminds me that sometimes even they have very different opinions, and that I only need to listen more and ask the right questions to be able to get more of that from them. So
sometimes you find when you ask those questions, like, oh, this person hasn't actually thought about this shit.
Yeah. And that's okay too. Absolutely. That's okay too. Like, I have also realized that there's, just like we talked about that dead internet thing, and this is like the equivalent of my flat earth theory. I think it's more like dead planet than internet. Like, for as overpopulated as we are, the vast amount of uninhabited space that I see all over just in our little area versus, instead of, the planet, the universe, it's crazy. I don't know how many of these people that I drive next to on the highway that are by themselves in the car, all four windows up, smoking a cigarette and pulling their mask down to take a hit and pulling it back up. I don't know how many of them are real people. My point is, if the internet's full of fucking fakes and trolls, how many of these motherfuckers are just NPCs, dude?
Yeah, I'd legitimately like to.
I want to just start following people home, like I do. I want to follow you home and see if you walk into your house and have human interactions, or you just fucking power down and shut off for the night until it's time to read in the morning. Like, honestly, I want to know if they're NPCs or not, because there are people, I could probably name 10 right now. I know it sounds fucking crazy. I don't think they're real people, dude.
You want to know what I think it is? I think it's a differential and disparity in IQ. A
I
lot
hope
of
so.
a
I hope
lot.
so. I hope they're
Yeah.
just dumb. I really
That's
do.
the that's
That's like best
that's
case
the
scenario. Just stupid. I
yeah.
can explain stupid.
I mean, listen, the mask is a fucking security blanket
Sure. But
anymore.
I mean, and that's one specific example. But the
Yeah.
NPC thing, that stretches beyond the COVID. Like I'm realizing more and more that there's a lot of NPCs out there, dude. A lot.
Yeah. Well, the bell curve dictates, if that's what we believe in, that there's a lot of dumb motherfuckers and not a lot of smart people. And a lot of dumb motherfuckers, a lot of people, okay, and then very few, smart people.
Yeah.
And I ask myself a lot, how do I coexist with these people? Because the way that I see it, metaphorically, is there's a room full of people, and there's a table in the middle of it, and there's a gun on the table. I know, a gun, right? Yeah, I get it.
Tell me more.
There's a
Real
gun
predictable, guy.
There's a gun on the table, and there's a buzzer that goes off, and everybody's going to fight over it. And that gun is the gun, And there's dumb motherfuckers in there. There's smart people, and yeah, you can adjust your tactics and everything. But let's just say, on balance, everybody is starting at an equal starting point, right? Nobody is like going to have a specific tactic to be able to get to the gun faster or whatever. And in some cases, maybe they do, but that dumb motherfucker has a pretty good. He's got a puncher's chance of getting that fucking gun and shooting you with it, and that's a scary proposition.
It is. And my perspective would be to talk to that dumb motherfucker enough that once, and if he does get his hands on it, one, I've shown him trigger discipline, and two, he knows his homeboy in the corner is not the one he needs to be pointed at.
I don't know. The gun has a pretty compelling argument as to why it wants it to be used.
For sure.
And by the way, all of the people in the room think that everybody else is going to use the gun on them.
Absolutely.
So it's
well, and the analogy holds water too, because you could use it for other things. When you talked about everybody's got an opportunity to grab the gun at the onset, right? Well, to me, that sounds like equality of opportunity versus what a lot of people are pushing for right now, and that's equality of outcome. We can't all hold the gun at the same time. We can't all hold an equal part of the gun. Doesn't work that way. Somebody's going to get it first.
Yeah. Somebody's going to be faster, stronger, smarter.
Somebody's going to get it first. It's up to you to either tactically figure out how to get it from them or to make sure you're standing next to them when they have it.
I just want the gun on the table.
Guess what, bitch? I'm wearing a bomb vest.
Yeah. But again, I think the people that can order themselves in society where they should be on the hierarchy. I'm not at the top, of course. I know exactly where I'm at, where I'm supposed to be at, what my strengths and weaknesses are. And I'm completely comfortable with those things. Because I know, hey, you know what? I have an opportunity to drop 40 pounds. I have an opportunity to get my purple or brown or black belt in jiu-jitsu. All it takes is the effort. Do I put the effort into all those things all the time? Fuck no. But I know that I possess the power to do so, and I'm comfortable with that. Now I should push myself further, but I guess what the point that I'm making is a lot of people don't know what their strengths and weaknesses are, and they're fucking super insecure.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll rush to have somebody hold their water for them instead of actually taking ownership of the outcome.
Self-auditing is scary. It requires honesty, and how many people are willing to be brutally honest with themselves?
Fucking nobody.
Right.
I mean, you can endeavor.
You can try, but you just said it earlier. I think in today's conversation, most people spend the good majority of their lives lying to themselves, justifying why A, B, or C didn't go their way, why they're heavy, why they're sad, why they don't have the job that they like, why they don't have a partner that they like, why they're a victim. most people spend their entire life listening to those lies in their own head. So for them to be honest with themselves and self-critique, that's a big ask, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Looking in the mirror is fucking scary,
Fuck
you
yeah.
know, and it never gets not scary, you know. I think there's high performers on the opposite end of the spectrum, which do it too much and they destroy themselves in the process too.
Mhm.
You know, I think that's relatively rare, but yeah, I mean that's another thing to like watch out for.
It can't,
You know,
it's like we talked about with the confidence. I didn't mean to cut you off, but like we talked about with Kay with
yeah,
the confidence, right?
yeah,
Perfect
yeah,
example. Too much confidence, we can get complacent. Not enough confidence, we have no faith in our skills or abilities, and we end up just laying around and waiting for the inevitable ass kicking that we think is coming. It could easily
yep.
be, transferred to any situation. Like you said, you can be overly comfortable in your ability. Like, I'm the fucking quickest shot this side of the goddamn Mississippi. I get this gun, I'm shooting everybody in this room. Using your analogy, where you can,
Sure.
you could be the baddest motherfucker in the room, but you don't have the confidence to go for it. Now you're subject to that dumbass holding it and pointing it at you, like you said. So that balance, I think, like we talked about in the beginning of the conversation, there's got to be a somewhat of an equilibrium, right? Well, too much one way or the other, and you're screwed.
And through our training, I'm sure you would agree with this. We found it's not until you actually have to fight over that gun that you realize how much of a fucking liability it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a force multiplier, but it goes both ways. You know,
that was the biggest thing that you opened my eyes up to. And by the way, check out the Ethereal YouTube and check out some of our training videos if you guys want to see what I'm talking about. But that was one of the biggest things you opened my eyes to when we started developing our curriculum and getting this stuff together, was that, yeah, it's a force multiplier. Yes, 95-pound untrained person now has a chance against 250-pound linebacker with bad intentions, right? But if linebacker gets a hold of that thing before I get it on site, different story. That force multiplier can still go either direction. That's not something that I even considered until you and I started working together. It's like we talked about before with people that get their concealed carry permit, right? Oh shit, I got the piece of paper. I'm good. Nothing's ever going to happen now. I don't even need to carry my weapon. I don't ever need to practice with it. I don't ever need to put rounds down range. I don't need to practice getting it out of the holster and getting it on site. Psh, I got my carry permit. I'm bulletproof. It's the same idea.
yeah. And the good news is that a high level of skill in jiu-jitsu is actually transferable in that environment. And I know that sounds obvious now in retrospect,
Sure.
but I'll say, perhaps the first couple of times where it's a novel situation, probably get the jump on somebody that has a higher level of skill in jiu-jitsu, because they're not necessarily looking for a gun or a knife necessarily. But after a couple of times, you're like, okay, there's only a few ways that this can happen. And it's really no different than attacking the arm or whatever. I just have to worry about where it's pointed and shit like that. So, but I was really happy to see that, like, just because, a blue belt had a gun, it doesn't mean that the black belt always fucking loses. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Once you figure out that problem, now you're still a black belt and I'm still a blue belt.
Yep.
So yeah.
Well, like you said with the puncher's chance too, though, I still have to respect it, right? Whereas if you didn't have that, I'd probably just run roughshod and fuck you up left and right.
Right.
But with it, I still at the very least have to respect that puncher's chance, right? That thing could go off. It could hit an artery. I could rapidly lose blood pressure. Now all of a sudden I'm a white belt.
Yeah. Especially with the gun and knife problem together. I don't think that we, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've done enough work with both together where the opponent has both.
No, we've done
one or the other.
Yes, we've done one off. What, you have one, I have one, vice versa, but if we have, it's not very often where one assailant has both weapons though.
I only wonder about that because that's what I carry, is a gun and a knife. And I know I've been in a couple of roles with you guys where it's like we're fighting over the gun, and then it becomes immediately apparent to me that I should dump this thing because it's getting into that liability territory versus, a boon. But then if you're focused on the gun, now I'm over here with a knife, and so, and I wonder how much that would change the dynamic, or if there's a way to solve that problem too. Not that we're going to run into that person. That's fun to experiment,
Black belt with a gun and a knife. Yeah, let's see.
Yeah. Terrible. Yeah.
It's an interesting conundrum to have to solve real time, but like we've talked about, I think ad nauseum before, the benefit in that training is that we're getting used to just having to deal with the problem real time. Just like I said, it goes from, and you've seen it and pointed it out even to me a few times, where it's a training speed. We're rolling, we're tossing each other around a little bit, nothing too crazy. Then training knife comes out, and the speed and intensity of our training goes from like, yeah, we're chill, we're having a good time, everybody's rolling, we're getting some work in, it's a nice sweat, everybody's breathing, to boom, it's a fucking fight over a knife. And we all know it's fake. We all know it's a training knife, but every single time it goes boom, boom, boom. That level just, I think that's probably the best benefit of that training that we're doing, is getting used to boom, shit just got real. Boom, shit just got real. And dealing with it.
Yeah, it's some real lizard brain shit for sure. I mean, and you get that in jiu-jitsu, but I think depending on the person and depending on, well, the two people really, your training partner, it could be argued maybe that some people get comfortable with it.
Oh, yeah.
Just go with that, not flow rolling necessarily, but just, hey, we're doing this thing, and maybe you turn it up a little bit. But
I'm a black belt, dude. I can go roll for 4 hours straight and be okay.
Right.
And kill, figuratively, 10 people and have them all whooped and exhausted. But those same people, that same amount of time in rolling, you add the airsoft or you add the training knife, my level at the end of that is significantly diminished.
Yeah.
And it's from that comfort level, right? I know the jiu-jitsu. The added aspect, the mental aspect, we talked about it last time, when you put that timer in my ear when I'm fucking hitting my marks, and then you put that goddamn timer in my ear and I just start doing this shit. It's the same thing. Like, I know the motion, I know what I'm supposed to be doing. It's that extra that kind of changes the factor a little bit. Like you said, that lizard brain kicking in and trying to grab the wheel. I think that's where most of our training is happening. No, you got to deal. You got to deal. You got to adapt.
I'm sure it's just like when you go to a mega and those dudes are throwing on that leg shift. It's like you can't ignore it. You can't just kind of roll. You can to a certain degree, but what I'm saying is that turns up the intensity, because that's an immediate threat.
Fuck yeah. And you're either going to deal with it or you're going to tap 30 times.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. It's and we go to my other buddy Tony's place in Palm Harbor, and it's the same thing. It's a competition school. All they do is no-gi jiu-jitsu, and they go, dude. Like, they all very similarly roll like a lot of people do. Very much like their instructor. Lots of arm drags, lots of leg entries. It's not stuff that you're used to seeing from your normal after school jiu-jitsu kind of a place. So when you go in there right off the bat, like, that learning curve is sharp. I brought Gabe, who was on our panel a week or two ago. I brought Gabe in with us this past Monday. Had a great time, but Gabe was whooped. He's like, damn, it's like that. I'm like, yeah, every Monday, dude, this is what we do. We come in here, he teaches for about 25 minutes, and then we train for like an hour and a half straight. And every match is like competition speed. It's not bullshit after school karate stuff like we've done at other places. It's competition speed. Like, we did an hour and a half of competition speed rolling. I'm like, by the end of that, if you are upright, you probably did not do very well. Like, if you got a couple taps and you represented yourself decently, you're probably exhausted by the end of that. You know what I'm saying? And me included. So varying degrees of that mental shift, I think, changes that comfort level, just like how you, with your level of experience, and again, this is mirror image, firearms versus martial arts for me, and how we help each other out. You, on that exact same drill that you had me doing with the timer at 7 yards, well, you're gonna hit that all day with or without the timer, not a big deal. we add maybe another factor that you're not used to, now your performance might look a little bit more like mine. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Oh, like when I went to that instructor course a couple weeks ago, he has certain standards that are reflected in belts because he's martial arts and shit too. And in practice, I was paired with another dude, and our objective for that portion of the class was like to coach one another. And so I decided to go through the tests and standards for the final test, and I hit a 100% twice in a row. And then, but when it came time to actually do the test, when it's for realsies, I got an 80. So it's like there's always a skill degradation, but the objective, I think, is to carve out such a deep well of skill that when that inevitable degradation happens, when the fight is for real, there's so much there for you to gather from that you don't come up short.
Yeah. Even at a lesser version, you're still pumping out at 85% efficiency comparatively. You know what I'm saying? That's right. Absolutely, that's the whole purpose of training. You know what I'm saying? So even when we see that huge drop off in skill, like exactly like you said, you can still pull that 80 out where some people might have had to come back and shoot again. Yep.
And it's funny, the whole jujitsu thing, like my perspective right now, and it could very well and likely is because it's immature. But I look at like the leg lock stuff and competition, especially, and kind of as a meme, or like if I were to go to one of those like competition speed classes or whatever with you for an hour and a half, like, hey man, didn't you have fun? I was like, yeah, I wanted to have fun, not this crazy trailer park shit, But I just like I look.
Somebody covered all these kids in baby oil.
Yeah. I look at the leg stuff in the competition stuff, and I feel like it's gamified. I'm not saying it wouldn't work in the street. Don't get me wrong. It fucking would. I'm like,
there is so much strategy and tactic for specific rule sets that I will change a sequence that I teach one way. I'll teach it 500 students the exact same way, but you'll tell me one person's going into an IBJJF competition versus like an EBI competition, and I'll teach that person doing the EBI competition. I'll teach them a different sequence.
Right.
So it is. It's gamed. It's 100% gamed. I'll admit that. However, like you said, some of it transfers. If you pull a knife, I have no fucking reason to throw outside ashi and put you into a heel hook. There's no advantage. Right. There's no advantage. Right. Could I still completely and utterly destroy your knee? Absolutely. I can make sure you don't fucking ever walk again. But I also might get stabbed 46 times because you got a fucking knife. It's 100% game. But yes, you got to pick and choose what transfers over to the CQD stuff. But just in terms of overall jiu-jitsu skill, holding on to slippery, wet people that are giving you 100% resistance helps you be a better grappler. The specific techniques, personally, and this is opinion, and I hope somebody that's a jiu-jitsu guy watches this on YouTube and you guys light my ass up. I want to see 1 million comments on it. Way too much legs, dude. Way too much legs in competition. From white belt level all the way up to black belt. We just were at K's competition. I saw this dude get tapped with a straight armbar twice, 2 different opponents, double elimination tournament. You know what he was working on the warm-up mat between his 2 matches after getting tapped from the first armbar, straight armbar, before getting tapped by the straight armbar a second time? You know what he was doing on the warm-up mat?
Let me guess.
Fucking leg feeds, dude. He was sitting there with his buddy, double butt scooting each other, sitting in 50-50, ankle feeding, getting into leg positions. If you don't have a fucking top game, if you don't have a guard, if you can't get out of an armbar, you don't have a jiu-jitsu game. I don't care how good your leg locks are. Because if you can't tap me in the first 10 seconds of that leg lock, guess what? You still have 80% of your body to defend. Good luck.
Right.
Those holes, like that concept of those cavernous holes in your game, I'm sure you got 1 million examples. It transfers to anything, dude. Like anything. That same comfort level you're talking about you know, I'll sound like an idiot if I try to make a parallel. I'm sure you can make one on your own, but you know what I'm saying? Like that, there's so much focus on the cool shit that the fundamentals get overlooked. I think that's a huge problem in sport grappling right now, but that's not to take away from the very real shit that transfers pretty much unilaterally.
Yeah. So I'm in a place where, like, I'm comfortable with the traditional shit. It's fun enough for me.
There's nothing wrong with it. It works too. There's a reason it's traditional, because it fucking works, and
right.
it's stood the test of time. There's a reason why we teach straight armbar the same way they taught it 150 years ago. There might be a foot placement difference here or there, but the joint extends and hyperextends the exact same way. Rear naked choke hasn't changed. They're getting in and out of it a little different. Controlling the waistline maybe changes with the times, but the choke is the choke, dude. That's what it is.
Nothing new under the sun.
No, and it lasts the test of time. Like this leg stuff, you didn't see that 30 years ago. Probably won't see it 30 years from now. Not that it doesn't work. The game's going to evolve. The next new thing, this legs became a big deal when Gordon Ryan got popular 5 years ago. Yeah. Once Gordon Ryan won ADCC and started destroying heavyweights with leg locks and showing a versatile offensive leg game, everybody changed their game to what he was doing. Everybody wanted to do what the Death Squad was doing. And now they all look like carbon copies because now they're a step behind. They're all following. So the next person to, and if you've heard that, I'm sure you heard Friedman, you heard the Death Squad guys on Lex Friedman's show. The next person to innovate, the next person to find that undervalued skill set is going to be the next John Danaher, the next Gordon Ryan, the next head of the Death Squad, because they're finding that undervalued thing that works and figuring out how to make it valuable.
Let me ask you this, because you've actually watched those episodes and you probably know a little bit more about those guys. I know of them and who they are and what they've done, but I'm going to make a guess here, not knowing really anything about them and their opinions and having heard them talk about shit at length. People are probably all oogly googly over the leg lock shit and the success that Gordon Ryan had with it. I'm willing to bet, and I could be making a fool out of myself here, but I'm willing to bet that they're probably, if somebody were to say, yeah, that leg lock shit is so cool, like, man, you innovated and that's awesome. And they probably like, yeah, it's cool, but now we're on to this next thing and we're going to fucking, innovate some more over here or do something different. That's from before, whatever. Like, they don't even really give a fuck about it as much as the people who are like, oh my God, gushing over their shit.
Bingo. He actually mentioned it in the interview. He's like, all right, you've been the best in the world for the last 5 years. Like, how do you stay motivated? He's like, easy. There's nobody in the gym that's got any kind of smoke for me. My motivation is getting better than me. I can roll with everybody I've got. He's like, I'm one of the best in the fucking world. There's nobody that's got anything for me on the mat. So the motivation for me is finding the shittiest spots of my game and making it the best spot of my game. Yes, I had the leg lock thing. Yes, I got popular for that. I won with it. Cool. Now what? Well, now I want to beat people with top pressure. Now I want to beat people by taking their back. Now I want to beat people with wrestling. Now I want to be the best guard passer in the world. And that's how he's gotten to the point where he's at now. He keeps finding these weak aspects of his game. And part of that's having a good objective coach is telling him, hey, your guard passing sucks. Yeah, your leg locks are good. You got a high percentage, but you're hitting them all from the bottom because you're fighting off your ass the whole time. Try fighting on top. And that's how he develops like a really good overall game, because he constantly, like you said, self-analysis, being honest and objective with himself, finding the shortcomings and addressing them. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody's got that switch. Guy like GSP, natural athlete, not a natural martial artist, had to put a lot of work in to get where he was at. Similar to what I was talking about before, there's a lot of guys doing the wrestling thing. There's a lot of really dangerous kickboxers. There's a lot of jiu-jitsu specialists at that time. Matt Hughes, as a wrestler, was one of the most dominant welterweight champions in the world at that time. GSP found his lane in shoot boxing, in his transitional wrestling, and specifically in his ground and pound. Made him one of the most dominant champions in the history of professional fighting because he found his lane in those weird transitional spots that nobody was training. Even wrestlers like Matt Hughes, decorated world champion wrestlers, George St. Pierre is able to execute takedowns on. Why? Because of the striking. Not because he was a better wrestler than Matt Hughes, because he was able to set him up with hands and feet. So finding those little areas to excel in is what was able to get him head and shoulders above. Because, yeah, if we're all doing the same thing in terms of Greco-Roman wrestling training, there's going to be a ceiling, right? Like if we're all doing the same shit, your natural ability is going to get you a little higher here or there, but there's going to be a ceiling. Finding those other areas to excel in is what's going to get you over those other guys that are stuck at that plateau. So for a guy like Gordon, he's honestly looking at all these aspects of his game and boom, 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 boom. But he's got the benefit of having a guy like Danaher who isn't an athlete, has physical deformities that prevent him from like competition. Like he trains enough to know the movements and to demonstrate, but he's not like a competitive grappler by any means. Guy was a fucking philosophy professor from Columbia.
Mastermind, yeah.
Like
yeah,
the guy's
crazy.
got an analytical brain. Like he's able to probably break a concept down, understand it, and look at it rationally, look at it objectively, look at all the different aspects before, during, and after, and really have a good understanding of what's going on. That's a huge benefit for an athlete. So he gets the benefit of a world champion like GSP going before him, because Danaher coached GSP full-time before the Death Squad guys. Gordon Ryan.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. He used to have hair. If you look at GSP's old fights, he had this like long black coif. It was the weirdest looking thing, but yeah, he had hair. But he was GSP's coach for a long time. And then, so you're a guy like Gordon Ryan, you've got the benefit of your world champion, like game-changing MMA fighting teammate in George St. Pierre. You've got your Columbia doctorate class. I'm sorry, your Columbia doctorate program professor for philosophy as your head coach and John Danaher. Like there's a lot to be gained, I think, just from the level of experience around you leading up to the beginning of your journey and having the wherewithal to self-critique. Like, fuck, dude, between that and that time, it's a no-brainer that the guy's a world champion, honestly.
Yeah. And it's you have to have a really healthy perspective about that shit, because like, it's easy to look at a coach, especially one that may not like a football coach, right? Seen some fucking football coaches, dude. Those motherfuckers couldn't get on the field, not some of them anyways. But the goddamn masterminds in knowing how to like move pieces on the chessboard around. They're intimately familiar with the game and know everything in and out. They just have people executing the specific jobs, So that's that. Like when I look at Danaher and Gordon Ryan, it's like, yeah, man, Danaher's like the puppet master, and not to discount Gordon Ryan, he's kind of the puppet. Like he's the guy out there executing the shit that Danaher would be doing if he had the body for it or whatever the case is, But I've seen like in sales, it's really hard to respect a sales leader that isn't a salesperson, because salespeople are sharks, and if their leader's not a shark,
How you gonna bitch at me about my closing percentage? You ain't even been on a sales call this month.
Yeah, get on the fucking phone. So like when I moved into leadership in my sales organization, the first thing I did was get on the phone. I had just gotten off the goddamn phone. I'm getting back on it, but that's a respect building thing. But I think it's really unique to have a relationship like Danaher and Gordon Ryan, where that probably wasn't even questioned. Like, and good for him, because he reaped all the benefits from it, like having that expert level coaching shit. It's built on trust.
For sure.
So,
and it's hard probably to not immediately just be like, yeah, okay, whatever you say, when you're looking at George St. Pierre standing over here next to him, like, yeah, listen to what he says. It's okay, like, oh, all right, chief, no problem.
Right.
Like, yeah,
right.
You're world champion. Yeah, okay, we'll give it a try and see how it goes.
Right.
It's wild though. I don't want to sound like a fangirl because I know a lot of the Gordon Ryan supporters are huge fangirls, but the guy, it's like we've talked about with St. Pierre, like developing those underutilized aspects of the game. Well, now everybody's kind of caught up to what he's doing. There's instructional videos on the stuff that he does. There's like people are teaching the stuff that he does. It's permeated the culture enough that it's commonplace. So much so that, like we talked about it, it's almost taken over competitive grappling because everybody's trying to do the same shit he's doing. Not just him. He popularized it. There's guys like Gary Toonen and stuff that have been fighting in Japan and shit that have been doing it a little bit longer, but in the States, he really made it. It jumped up with him. I'll say it again. There's going to be another one, whether it's because he can't compete because he's got some medical issues that he's been dealing with for a while. He just gets old.
Right.
There's another, hot and bothered, coach with some different aspect or concept. Whatever it is that changes the time or brings the focus from him to the next guy. The next guy, I guarantee, is not going to be doing the same shit that Gordon Ryan's doing.
And that's the great irony, isn't it? Right? Because like everybody says, well, if I do what Gordon Ryan does, then I'll be Gordon Ryan. No, Gordon Ryan is who he is because he was doing the shit other people weren't doing. So like not everybody can be an innovator. It's really fucking hard. Like, and you're probably gonna fail at it. And that's why it's innovation, because you find something nobody else has. So it's easier to take the path of like just copying somebody, and I get it, but I think that copying thing is just so lame. Like you don't get it,
Yeah, you're not gonna get the fucking brass ring by being safe, man. Like you gotta take a chance every once in a while, put your neck out there,
right.
Have a little faith,
protect your neck.
Oh man, with that, I'll leave it at protect your neck, dog. I'm gonna get out of here.
Cool.
It's like 11:30. Yeah.
My headset's about to die, but talking or watching Kay's thing and talking about him, and I want to get back on the mats.
Let's fucking do it.
I've been holding out
for what? For the gym?
For the school to open.
Yeah, me too. But here we are.
Right. Because it is just fun. And I've never regretted going.
And you never will.
But
it's a ball.
No.
Once we get you in, like consistently for a couple weeks, I'll bring you down to Palm Harbor. I don't want to bring you in there now. You'll have a grabber.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
No, ass kickings aside, it's a lot of fun, dude. A lot of fun. It's like that feeling when you get done with like a really long fucking ruck, like right before you're about to have that fucking first sip of that craft beer hit your lip, and all those endorphins are just rushing in because your muscles finally just started cooling down, and then you're like, oh fuck yeah, you get that frosty cold glass, and like right here. Like that's the feeling that I have when I leave jiu-jitsu. This one right here, right around freeze frame. Like, my whole body feels like that when I leave. It's like, fuck yeah, I did that shit, man. Woo! I'm gonna enjoy this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Sweet.
Good shit, brother. I appreciate you, man. All right, brother.
All right.
Thanks.
Talk to you.
We'll see you.
Yep. See you.
I appreciate you.
As time goes by,